Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back to Faith Family Focus. I am one of your co-hosts, Faith Suggs, former Duke women's basketball graduate and current CEO and founder of Brand by Faith, a social media and digital branding company dedicated to telling the stories of our clients. This wonderful man next to me is my father, Schaefer Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals, and has also served on the executive board and as VP with the RPFPC, also known as the NFLPA Chicago chapter. Good morning, Dad. How are you?
Good morning, Faith. Beautiful morning. Supposed to get up to 85 degrees today. And looking
Yeah.
forward today, I think I'm going to try to get my roses today for my seasonal Mother's Day. I got to Costco late, but it is a wonderful, beautiful morning. Is this our second show of May? Yeah, it is.
Of May, yes.
Okay.
Mental Health
Yes.
Awareness Month.
Yep.
Yes. It's already May 9th. I cannot believe it. It's already going to be June tomorrow. I feel like the seasons, and hear me out on this because you may understand. I feel like the seasons are being pushed back because the first week of May, we had so much rain that we had more rain, I feel like, than we had in the entire month of April. So, but now, it's warm outside now. So maybe now spring is happening. But I really think that, April kind of trickled a little bit into May. And that
Trickled?
may be trickled. Yeah, it might just be,
Yes. April showers bring flowers. Um, the trees are blooming finally, so that's kind of nice. Good. So,
yeah.
how was your weekend? You had a good weekend?
Weekend was good. Lots of basketball to
Yeah, I love
watch.
basketball.
Some boxing was on. Some WNBA started this weekend. Debuted. First games kicked off. Some of these teams in the WNBA data are a little too stacked for my liking. On the Seattle Storm, they have Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart, Jewel Lloyd, and they have one more person that I'm missing. I don't think that's fair.
Well,
It's like
so
three player of the years on that team.
yeah, that leaves me. There's got to be some talk about probably expanding the WNBA. There's some other cities that may give some girls more opportunities. You think that would happen?
Well, you hope so. I mean, it costs money.
Yes, right.
It costs money. Everything costs money, right? Everything costs money, so you can't just start a league. But I think the cities like a Nashville would be cool. I think there could be two more teams in Texas. I think there definitely needs to be more teams in California. I think that the Oakland area, San Francisco area, there definitely should be a women's team. I know there's women's leagues popping up in San Francisco, but there needs to be a women's team for the W. I think that'd be great. But no, great. It was interesting to watch just how I don't know. I'm kind of like, yeah, we need more teams, but I kind of like seeing all-star teams too. Because like these names, right? The Aces have Chelsea Gray, Angel McCautry, Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, and De'Erica Hambry. That's fun to watch. But Liz Cambage is now with the Sparks. And you know who coaches the Sparks? Who?
I don't know, Faith.
Derek Fisher.
They're Fisher, right?
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was an exciting weekend. If you guys didn't watch any women's basketball, shame on you. It was pretty cool to watch. I don't know. It just seems like each year, thankfully, is getting better and better. It just needs to move, man. I agree. We need some more like teams, more fun. But that'll come slowly. But no, it is. I mean, since WNBA kicked off, we can, and baseball's almost full go. We can basically say it's summer now. We got one more month of summer, but it feels like summer sports are in the swing of things.
Right.
How are you? What is the weather? What's happening in Chicago, Illinois? What is new?
Okay, so the weather's good. Like I shared before, we have about 85 degrees today. Cloudy, but just looking forward to our first week of summer. It looks like because of the weather, we're completely skipping over spring. But I was, really excited about the show today because there's so much. I know you got to segue into it, but I can't, I was sharing with this before. This is our third opportunity to talk about mental health. This is our third opportunity to talk about mental health. We talked about it the first two seasons. This is our third season to talk about mental health month. And I was doing some research, and it was just unbelievable how much mental health is impacting sports and college sports, and so I wanted to kind of segue into that because it's huge. And I also think it's something that we need to talk about with professional sports too. So if you want to kind of kick that off, that'd be great.
You want to dive into that already, right now? I mean, here's a few. Let's cover NBA.
Okay.
In the playoffs, because we are 6 minutes in, and I want to make sure that
I'm rushing. I'm sorry.
Yes, I want to make sure that we don't feel shortened by mental health.
Okay.
There is one thing that I wanted to say to you about your Miami Heat that just got tied up.
Not my Miami Heat.
Sixers.
I'm Golden State Warriors.
Like I told you what happened.
Wait, why did you say this?
Watch out for Boston tonight.
No. Boston is playing Milwaukee.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, where are you going with this, young lady?
Everybody I picked is on the comeback.
Okay.
I think the Warriors are going to kill Memphis, though. I don't think Memphis is going to make it out. And you know what? Let's also talk about those dirty plays that are happening over
there. Okay, so let's talk about East.
So 76ers, Miami. 76ers tied it up last night 2-2. James Harden had finally popped out of 20 points plus. He's been struggling for the last 2 months to even get over 15 points. So I think the 76ers are trending. Well, Joel Embiid is back.
Right, exactly. So he actually assumed a role with Joel Embiid in there. And when all of a sudden he was back in his old role, right?
And you know what? I agree with you completely, because when you bring Joel Embiid back, and normally it's counterproductive, right? We can use an example like Rudy Gobert. Whenever Rudy Gobert is in the game, the Utah Jazz's paint touches and drives from guards goes down, right? Because Rudy Gobert clogs the paint. The style of play, like a Joel Embiid and a Giannis, these new kind of post players that can kind of spread the offensive flow, right? They step out to the 15-foot in comparison just hugging the block. They make it easy for people like James Harden, Danny Green, Tobias Harris to get shots, right? Open shots. We saw Dallas does a really great job of that. Right. So, no, I think that I really am scared for Miami to go back to Miami. In another comment about the Miami Heat, I really am not impressed with Miami Heat's fan base, but I know it's a club in there, so everyone shows up after.
Is it a thing? You got anywhere that Pat Riley's at, Faith?
I love Pat Riley. I love him. I love him. If you haven't seen Winning Season yet, where they take the dive into the behind the scenes, some of it's fake, some of it's real. But the Lakers dynasty, their first year, and how Pat Riley starts off as, he's trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life, and then he ends up as a commentator. He doesn't like being a commentator, and then he somehow becomes an assistant coach because the head coach for the Lakers had the bad bike crash. But yeah, and I secretly really want Miami Heat to win because I love Pat Riley and his story. But the 76ers, I think, are going to be the ones that do it. And I hope they do I feel like that's a team that deserves it. You got a lot of older guys and one young guy who just need a break like that. Joel Embiid has been hitting the door routinely.
You know what, Faith?
So let's move on to let's save your predictions for tonight, because I have a feeling who you're gonna pick. But let's go. Who else played yesterday, which was Dallas and
So Dallas and Phoenix. I missed that game. So what happened?
Dallas won. I missed the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, but for a second, Phoenix there looked a little frazzled. But I'm telling you, Chris Paul is having a hard time for some reason in Dallas. I don't know, and I don't know who the matchup is. I don't know if Jalen's guarding him. I really don't. But I know for sure Chris Paul's effectiveness in the first couple games and in the last series has gone down in this series whenever they go to Dallas. So
Jalen Brunson he's a beast.
He finally woke up in this series. He finally figured it out where he can get his shots and stuff. Because we saw him in that first series against Utah annihilating people, making people look silly. And now this one with Luka back full go. But that's what we just said with Joel Embiid. Sometimes it's hard for people to find where they can get their shots when you bring a superstar back. It's not easy to do that, like a Luka Doncic. But So who do you think's gonna get it?
But
Get it
let
Dallas?
me say something about. I like the 76ers chances right now.
Okay.
Okay, I really like them, and I think the Eastern Conference. I'm gonna stay on the Eastern Conference really quick, and then you got the Milwaukee and Boston. Okay, I think eventually Milwaukee is going to win, but Boston is really surprising me. Um, no, you're
I
right.
told you, watch.
I
I
had to
know.
watch them. I had to
Yep.
watch them. I had to watch them.
They're fun. That
Right,
coach is
right,
nice. He's good.
right,
Now you
right.
know who that coach's wife is?
Oh,
Nia Long, the actress.
okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
good
he
thing.
just got hired. He's part of Popovich's coaching tree.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So I like his flow.
Okay.
Like
So we'll pivot into the Western Conference. Dallas is going to probably win.
It's sad.
I know I didn't think so initially, but the momentum right now is in Dallas's favor right now.
I agree. I think the Phoenix team last year is better than the Phoenix team this year for some reason. And it's the exact same team. Exact same road
You
map.
think that Dallas is going to beat them?
I do.
Wow.
I
Okay.
do. And I hope that they don't. Even though we're rooting for Jalen, but I really want Chris Paul to get him a ring. You know what I mean? We have seen him in Oklahoma City. We've seen him in Los Angeles. We've seen him in Houston. And now we're watching him again in Phoenix. And he keeps getting so close. But right when he's close enough to finally get over that hump, he can't do it.
Right.
He can't do it. So I don't know. I want Chris Paul to get him a ring. But I don't know. I mean, Luka Doncic, something about this new age post player dad that is just, we didn't plan for this, right? Magic Johnson started it when he played center and was bringing the ball up against Dr. J in Game 5.
Well, Center got hurt.
In his first
Center
year.
got hurt, and they put Magic had to play center.
No, it wasn't him. It was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Are you calling him out of his name? That's not his name. It's Kareem. What's his name?
Abdul-Jabbar, yeah, right.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
See, you forgot it was Wells Center.
Well, because I was respecting his religion and giving him his chosen name. But I think that, yeah, I mean, Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Dad, these kids are so talented now. It's so impressive to watch. I mean, you still see your legendary, centers in the league now, right? But it's like they're not making the same money the Magic Johnson tree is making. You know what I mean? They're not making the same money the Shaq. It's just so impressive to watch how they're evolving their games, but to beyond just post moves and to beyond just step outs and moves from there. It's now, how can I push the break? How can I, you know what I mean? It's just awesome to watch. So, yeah, I think Luka's going to do it. I think Luka's going to close them out in Phoenix.
Right. And then tonight's game, Memphis, and now I don't know if Ja Morant hurt.
That's his knee. We don't know. They say it was another dirty play. We have been constantly discussing. I don't think it was dirty either. You know what was dirty play was that Dylan Brooks foul.
Right.
Like broke that kid's elbow.
Yeah.
That's a dirty play.
Right.
Like that game is getting a little too tricky.
In a second, right?
But the drama foul is Draymond Green, where Draymond Green goes.
Yeah, but see,
follows him.
Those are reputation fouls.
Yes.
Right. So he brings that on himself. So.
Yes, but he actually was on his best behavior last game.
He was.
Yeah, I think he realized when he got kicked out the game. But I think that, and he got popped in the eye. That does it to you. But I think I mean, we've learned this time and time again. Don't bet against the Warriors. Don't bet against that man Stephen Curry. Don't do it. You lose money. So yeah, Warriors coming out the West. Dallas. So Dallas Warriors. 76ers.
You're having a hard time saying it, aren't you?
Because I don't want to say Milwaukee because I really hated how they played last game.
Milwaukee, but you got Milwaukee or Boston.
I know. I'm gonna flip a coin, but I'm gonna go for Boston. I'm just gonna root for him. Milwaukee has a higher chance, but I just something about Boston, man. I think that the youth always, 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 always goes forward over age, especially when it's so much harder to defend a title than chase a title. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. You're thinking their youth. There's a lot more energy. There's a lot more.
Legs.
Okay, well let's see. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Okay. So there's our thing. So Dallas 76ers, you got Milwaukee, but I got Boston and what's it called? Warriors. That is our NBA. But let's transition a little bit. So like we spoke on, we've had a wonderful, wonderful group of shows in the past on Mental Health Awareness Month, which is May. Let me make sure we have that up on our screen. And as of 2022, there has been a spike in some interesting things. Suicide rates in college students, and I have statistics here. Suicide in college students has not only risen in the last 2 decades, but general suicide rates of everyone has raised in the last 2 decades. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in 17 to 24-year-olds in 2019. Since March 1, we have seen 3 suicides of collegiate athletes already in Katie Meyer, Sarah Scholes, and Lauren Burnett. Yes. The month of March was hard to see. It seemed like every week we saw a new young face, right? All young women athletes, right? And then, the story that I can't help but think about in this is the baseball player in the MLB who played for the San Francisco Giants years ago, Drew Robinson, tried to take his own life and survived it. A gunshot wound to the head, survived it. And I can't help but keep thinking about these stories we're hearing, right? And be puzzled like everyone else on why they're happening. So what we wanted to do today is not only talk mental health, but talk mental health and athletes and what is the common factor and why is it happening to young, happy, top of their class athletes now, post pandemic, as everyone's finally coming back out. Why is it happening now? So Dad, I guess you can kick it off with your initial thoughts with everything.
Yeah. So I guess the question is 2 things I want to get your perspective because fortunately I have 2 beautiful kids that are psychology majors and just from our own relationship, allowed me to get a better lens on mental health and the words that come from me, how it can actually impact in my generation. It didn't exist and it just kind of worked through stuff and brute through stuff. And that's not necessarily the right thing to do because I feel now, just based off of what has transpired in my life over the last couple of weeks, how much not having access or the reality that I need to be able to process some things that I don't understand. I guess the question from an athlete standpoint is the pressure to perform too much? And then the second question, I know that you got to probably spend some time on that, is it insufficient access to mental health resources for student athletes? Is it not enough resources? Those are my 2 questions for you.
Yeah. So I think to kick it off, it's hard, right? Because mental health doesn't always come from outside pressures being an athlete, right? That's the big one, right? We all, when we think about, we're like, it has to be the pressure that comes from being an athlete, from family, from coaching staff, from schools. But I think now we're starting to see the pressure come from within.
When you say within, you within them, within their family?
Within themselves.
Okay.
We're growing up in an era where everything is on display, right? Your success, your failures, of yourself and your peers, your competitors, and athletes who are on social media, right? They're on this tool we use, have this, and we've discussed this before, have now visibility to seeing everything that they are not doing, or they're not doing enough of, right, in their perspective. And to me, that is what's causing anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts in 17 to 24-year-olds, right? Because one, we take them away from home, and we put them in a competitive atmosphere, which is what collegiate sports is. For 4 years, you're basically in a competitive atmosphere. And we are expecting them to succeed, right? Because we have now given them all the physical resources, right? Okay, you have NIL. Now you have boosters. Now you have the ability to go do internships. Now you have, we're providing you with physical rehab, rehabilitation, the top doctors, the resources for great food, right? We fought for all of that. Psychological resources, we're throwing them out there. But now we're seeing something new now, because it's not us anymore. It's our individual selves, right? It's not the institution anymore. It's not the instant way. It's ourselves. It's we're pushing, and we're also telling ourselves often we're not doing enough, right? We're not successful enough. We're not living up to what our potential is supposed to be. What we see Joe Schmo over there, who just won, right, the NCAA championship, right? Or we see so-and-so has had first team all league for the second time, and I keep falling short, right? Or maybe, and this is the scariest one of them all, the athlete at the peak of their career winning a NCAA soccer championship and then committing suicide days later. That one to me is still puzzling. And that's how I know it's not just the outside pressure anymore. Because normally once you win, that relief, it doesn't lift completely, but there's a relief, there's a sigh for a second, right? A week and a half where you can just relax. We're not seeing that anymore. And that's how I know it has to be coming from internal, and it has to be coming from the self-pressure, the unhappiness to be in this constant hamster wheel cycle that we call collegiate sports, and the feeling of not being enough, right? And the visibility we have reminding us that this fake world on our phones we have to continuously try to live up to is not possible, And so, I mean, I think we don't have the answers, obviously, but it's bigger now than just the outside pressure which we were able to point our fingers at years ago. It's bigger than that now.
Would you say depression in women is higher than men?
They actually say suicide rates are higher in men. Depression is higher in women because, one, your hormone cycle impacts that, birth control impacts that, childbirth impacts that, right? So women have a higher chance of slipping into depression, anxiety, and thoughts like that because of the things that obviously society puts us through, which is a completely different conversation, which is very relevant to everything going on right now in our government. But in men, they say that suicide rates are the highest, especially in Black men. Suicide rates are the highest in Black men in that community, which the number one sport in NCAA right now, which we're seeing that, is football. And that can be, maybe it's CTE, but also maybe it's because the demographic that's playing the game comes from a community that is just now slowly accepting the conversation of mental health. So with women, the three athletes that we have lost throughout the month of March and April were women, right? Soccer, softball, track and field. We've seen basketball years ago. I remember when I was in college, there was a young lady who played basketball at Northwestern, and she committed suicide and turns out that she was pledging and there was hazing, but she added Greek under her workload, right? You add school, you add athletics, you add extracurriculars, you add on relationships, you add on friendships, and then you add on family problems. Over time, these student athletes, no matter how happy they may feel, are continuously fighting something, something.
There's an article from Julie Amato. She's a sports psychologist at Elite Mindset Sports from Princeton University. Here's a quote. Says that women athletes in particular struggle perfectionism. In my experience working with both male and female athletes are more preoccupied with comparing themselves to others and are more fearful of judgment and disapproval by others. They tend to magnify their mistakes and shortcomings and feel relieved instead of joyful when they succeed.
Yeah. And here's another thing that made me think about when it comes to women athletes specifically.
Well, let me say something. So you said she just won that NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
She succeeded, and then she ended up committing suicide.
Yeah.
Right. And so
she was the star goalkeeper for City.
Yeah. And then the last part of this, she says, feel relieved instead of joyful when they succeed. So maybe we should touch on.
That's mental health.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And let me correct myself. They won in 2019.
Yeah.
Right. So she's already achieved. I think that what we have to remember, and that's my thing about what people don't understand about mental health. Mental health is an illness, right?
Yes.
There's illnesses within mental health: depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, right? These are things you have to heal the same way you would heal pneumonia, right? Or the flu.
Yeah. Now you're right about
flu, right? When you have the flu, you still could have a good mind, right? But your body is just not operating at its best ability. And that is what people don't remember. We are slowly coming to terms with the idea that you can still be in a good situation and be mentally struggling.
Yeah.
Right? You can still be happy one day and then you're back to being in a hard place the next.
Yeah. Would you say today, because there's so much exposure with social media and media, that the only reason that you think it's more emphasized is because of that? I think this has been around for a long time. We just never acknowledged it. That term Indian the silence, because there's a stigma, especially around Black African American community, that there's a stigma behind mental illness. So do you think that this has always been out there? It's always been a huge issue. Do you think the pressures with kids in sports are greater today than they were back when I played?
They're greater today. There's an excerpt from a study that said the suicide rate in NCAA athletes appears to be lower than the general population. And the reason it says that is because the population of NCAA athletes is significantly already lower than collegiate athletes. So don't pay attention to that statistic. But NCAA male athletes have significantly higher rate of suicide compared to female athletes, and football athletes appear to have the greatest list. So in that study, they talk about the pressure. They talk about what student athletes are dealing with now. And that's obviously from 2019, 2020. NIL gives athletes the opportunity to capitalize off of their name, image, likeness.
Right.
But one, not every athlete can do that. Not every athlete is doing that, right? Not every university is doing that, right? And it's not just that. It's, I'll be honest with you. I think that the pressure is the same. I think that these athletes are now aware of the pressure. I think originally we were in a cycle. We didn't know that what we were doing was something that was too much, right? Because if you think about the day-to-day of an athlete, and I've spoke to other athletes about this, and I felt it myself, is you wake up on a Monday, At 5 o'clock, you go to workout. From 7 to 10, you have weights, film, and practice, right? You leave, you shower, you get training table, you go to class. Then you go to class. Then you get lunch with a teammate, maybe, or lunch by yourself often on the way to the next thing. And then maybe you come back to the facility later for conditioning, recovery, rehab, team meetings, tutoring, right? All the things, discussion question classes, right? There's spin-offs of class. You got to go to other classes that are part of the class. So by the time you get back home, it's about 6:37, right? You ate dinner, you're in bed, you're watching TV, you go to bed by 8:30, you wake up at 5 and do it all over again. Where in that schedule is there time for you?
Right.
Where in that schedule is there time for you to like step outside of the routine? There isn't. Monday through Friday, you're doing the exact same routine every single day, right? And then Saturdays and Sundays, you do it on Saturday. And Sunday, you do something else, but it's still, you're in the routine. So every single day, you're going to bed knowing you have to do the same thing over and over again. You do it, and then you do it again, and you do it again. And you're in this hamster wheel of process of collegiate athletics. And when you're in that, you almost like, and I used to do this when I was a coach, I used to like, I don't want to go to sleep because I want to extend my time not being a college athlete as much as I can. Right? Like I'm going to watch my Netflix shows as long as I can, even if I have to wake up tired the next day, because I want my day to be, some part of it to be about me, about what I want to do on my time. And that's the thing about collegiate athletics. Nothing about it is fun except for when you win.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand, is when you're constantly in this hamster wheel of somebody else's schedule and everybody else's requirements of you, you don't have time to check in on yourself. And that is what's missing from collegiate athletics. They added the mandatory off day. That's nice. We used it. Off days were so important. But like, it's the whole system. It's the process. It's being a college athlete. It's a lot. And we're now, kids are like, wait a second, this is a lot. We're doing a lot.
You know, as you share that, obviously, I feel bad. My experience with your brother over the last couple of weeks, I remember we were talking about him coming home, and I put an expectation that he needed to work out if he was going to be here. And I look and I feel so differently about that now. The realization that he's going through, he had a really difficult time, and he needed downtime, and I need to be able to see that. But I had to have that conversation. I had to hear it from him. I had to hear it from you to come to realization. So those are the early signs that as a parent we need to be able to see, because they may not handle things the way I handle things, you know? And so I think, you know, for me as a parent, I need to be able to recognize that, because although I was in college and I played 2 sports, it was very different than it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. And then here's one I actually like this. Faith, I couldn't agree with you more. You need to take time for self-care. You need to allow your student athlete to have a meltdown, cry, and let them just be. No expectations. There isn't time for that. And here's another thought. When we're parents, right? The role of a parent is to make the life of your child everything that you learned and thought could be better for yourself, right? And so the generation now, right? Think about that, of what your age is, Dad, and think about, you know, where you should have had kids. Then think about how many generations were in there, right? So about 3, right? 2 to 3, right? There's kids going to college now whose parents taught them and are going to schools where they have mental health days. Once a week, they're taking the day off, or once a month, they're taking the day off. They're going into college already knowing that mental health is a thing. Suicide is a thing. These kids know depression is not something that just happens. It's something that is in your, like, it's your chemical imbalance in your brain. It's something that you have to work for and get medication for and help and therapy. We are educated now, right? And because we're educated, That is almost the biggest downfall of it all, is because they know that they're in some BS. They know that they're in. No, think about it. They know
You're right.
this is wrong. I'm tired and I'm right for feeling tired. When you were in college and you were tired, you said, suck it up. Everybody's tired. When I was in college and I was tired, I'm just tired, but I'm going to just do it. Kids now, and even me now that I'm an adult, when I'm tired, I'm like, no, I'm tired for a reason. Why am I tired? Right? I can acknowledge that. Those kids have that mindset now. And that is almost the hardest part of it all, because we have administration and therapists and coaches in it who are still trying to figure this all out too. And that's what's scary about this. We have no control anymore. But we don't have control over mental health anyways. We don't. It's like riding a bike, you know what I mean? You go with the process and the hills that come before you. We can keep saying pressure, right? Peer comparison, the system, the hamster wheel of instant way. We can say that it's all right answers, right? But we don't have control over this, and that's what's sad about it, right? We don't have the answers for this show, right? We don't have the answers for how we're going to make this better. We don't. And that's what makes it scary, because parents are looking at their kids and like, my kid was happy. I don't understand, right? They're a winner. They're great at their job. They're a great athlete. Their teammates love them. Their coaches love them. Their peers love them. But apparently they were struggling mentally, and we just couldn't see that. That's what the system does. It numbs you.
What happens when, as a parent, I'm speaking specifically of me, is when, and I think it probably is my communication ineffectiveness, when you can't, when you do worry about it, when you are conscious about it, but you can't have the conversation with them to kind of drill into it. It Yeah, that you're shaking your head, right? What does a parent do?
What do you do? Listen. Enable. Right? There's nothing, because that's what I'm learning now more and more, is like, when people say they're struggling, I believe them.
Okay.
When people say that this is hard for them, I believe them. And the reason I say that is because if they've said that this is hard, they know it's hard, and they're already at a point where they're reaching out for others or expressing
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
to others. We
And,
know the
and this,
difference that.
yeah, I agree. And what I'm thinking, you saying that, and in his case, or in our, most kids don't want to disappoint their parents because they were probably struggling or wanted to say something long before this, because they're afraid to let someone down.
Yeah. And I think that's the hard thing for parents, is like, this is going to scare people, but you don't need a reason to be depressed. Right?
Yeah.
Women give birth to their babies. That's supposed to be the happiest time of their life. But for the 3 months following, if you ever come across a lot of women, they struggle. Chemical imbalances. You know what I mean? Like, there is no reasoning behind things. And that's why we have to value our conversations and value listening, right? And empathy, right? I think that, and that's the scary part about it, is, yeah, we're walking on eggshells because we just don't know. And the reason we don't know is because we're not inside that person's head. That's where it's at now, right? Originally we were at, okay, let's add mental health days. Let's add off days. Let's add this. Let's add psychological therapy and help and sports psychs attached to teams. Yeah, we did all that. Now it's got to be just along the lines of, are you really listening? Because we just had a cheerleader the other day commit suicide. And she said she had been battling that since she was in high school. She's a freshman in college. So it's out of our, it really is out of our hands. What it is it's just that. It's just being there for people is where we are now. Because the people know where they are. That's the hard part about it. And that's the scary part because now they're one step closer towards either extremely mastering the situation or allowing the situation to get out of hand and they just are tired.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what it is. We just saw we just saw two I don't want to, but I think she was Miss Universe and the other young lady
yeah.
jumped from a
That's
high
it.
rise in New York.
Jumped off a
And
building.
the other one did the same. Peak of their careers, happiest moments of their lives, supposedly, right? And that's the thing, though. And that's what we have. That's we have to start seeing that success doesn't always equal happiness. We know that, but it definitely doesn't equal rest. I think that summer school workouts, I've always thought this, I get them, but like, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they there? Why are we there? There's no other student athletes, there's no other students on campus. It's the student athletes and their teammates. And wake up, 6 a.m., work out, go to class, come back, work out, go home, do it all over again.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
That's not, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's like you start to dread going to sleep and start to dread waking up. You start to really love sleep because sleep is your time to rest and you know that that's the time you have to yourself and you don't even remember it.
Let me ask you this question. For me, what was the end game for me? My dream of possibly playing at the next level was what was driven by me. But there's point in times where that didn't matter because I do remember feeling the way that you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, the monotony of it. I went from football to basketball, right?
And then
But
at one point,
I didn't know anything else. Right.
Yeah. You didn't do anything else. So how
Right.
on earth were you supposed to create an identity that did not rely on sports?
Right.
Losing and winning never impacted my mental health. It was the process, the routine, because it doesn't allow you to feel human. It doesn't allow you to think. You know what I mean? It doesn't allow you to just sit there and just doze off and just like that's serious. Like, think about that. And the more I look back on it, and whenever I talk to Devin, I'm saying, hey, collegiate athletes isn't supposed to be fun. Right. But the reward is what makes it worth it, right? And that'll forever be a thing. It's like a fraternity and a sorority. Once you do it,
like once you hell week, yeah, right.
But you have to go through it, and that's the hard part. Not everybody will make it to the other side. A lot of people quit. Right. We lose a lot of people, right? Some people never ever get better.
Right. You know, it is about the conversation that we're having. This is why the mental health month is so important. You know, and I was talking about having this discussion on our NFL show Behind the Face Mask about these are former NFL players who obviously have experienced it, and I want to have that. You know, at what point in time, you know, this coaches got to be accountable for it, you know, because they're trained a certain way. And at what point in time do we have to make sure that a part of what they do, they have a responsibility, right? Don't they have a responsibility to be able
Don't they have mental health too?
Yeah, that's true. So
they're not trained for this.
Right. But I'm talking about not trained to be psychologists, but
they're
trained, not trained to be, but have a resource within the team environment for the coaches, also for the players, that will allow a conversation about it.
Right. I mean, we have that.
But there's enough.
I know Stanford I know Stanford has sports psych and psychiatrists at one of the greatest universities in the country, in the world. You feel me? I know they have a great coaching staff. And I know they have a coach. And here's the issue. This is something I'm going to probably blow your mind on. But you're saying, you know, college coaches should be there because they have relationships with those athletes, right? That's what they did, right? But don't you, as a parent, too? But you feel like you can't do everything either, right?
Right.
It's just it's we've got to find a way to implement in young athletes' minds that it's 100% okay to be aware of your surroundings. It's 100% okay to be aware of your mental health and your struggles and to communicate it. That is important. Now, the next step is, how can we implement you moving forward? So that's either you taking the steps of finding a routine that works for you, or figuring out and asking for, this is what I need in my schedule to make this easier on me. Shane had an athlete when he was at Robert Morris who took Sundays off. Now, as a coach, you know, all right, he took Sundays off. But the kid was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So, and then, you know, I've had a lot of athletes I've seen diagnosed with mental health illnesses in their time being athletes. The kid wasn't wrong for taking the day off. You know, he just wouldn't show up and the staff knew, but he'd come back on Monday and be good, right? Now, I'm not saying we should, you know, allow kids to go here or there, do whatever the heck they want, because we do sometimes need the stability of college sports. But we've got to find a way to allow the kid and the athlete to create the experience that they need for their mental health, right? So we have some underlying factors that never need to change, right? You got to be at practice, you got to be at games, you got to do this stuff. But maybe we're adding stuff in, like, do they need to be at the extracurricular cooking class? No, they don't. Do they need to be at the seminar for athletes monthly to discuss this or that or this? No, they do not, right? And I think that we need to have more and more conversations about how messed up college sports is to their faces, instead of just saying, it is what it is, we did it, you can do it, right?
Right.
It's not fun, we agree, but when you get past it, it's the best. And that, to me, is the best advice we can do right now, right? Like, it is terrible. It's not fun unless you win for 5 seconds.
Or play
sometimes.
Yeah. Right.
But, like, we have to start acknowledging, because I don't think the system of NCAA will change. It can't. Right? It can't. But we need to start having, and we're already on the right track, but having more and more open conversations about not just the pressure of sport, but the pressure of society.
Yeah.
Right? Female athletes should have taken last week off. You know what I mean? There was too much. I had coworkers they canceled calls last week as women. Because I get it. Right? Last week was traumatic. It was too much, right? The world having conversations about a women's healthcare. That's traumatic, especially to some people who have been through very unfortunate assault situations, right? I know women that called off work. Student athletes who are women, we should either had conversations, or we should have gave them the week off. Because what we don't realize is that this is the thing we're starting to learn about mental health, is our outside factors aren't just what we thought they were anymore, right? Originally was, all right, practice, the schedule, all this stuff. Gosh, the pressure of it, our family, they're calling us. That's what it was. But now it's bigger than that, right? Now we have accessibility to everything, to what's going on over in Ukraine, right? To what's happening to Brittany Griner, to there's so much happening on these things that are just draining you and making you tired. We have to have conversations. We have to listen. And that's how, like, you don't realize something's bothering you until you are talking about it. And so that's the importance of, you know, not just the resources, shoving a psychiatrist in their face, but actually having open and authentic conversations the best time you can. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just sitting down, just talking.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's what's going to make it, we don't have the answers. We don't have the answers. And that's a big part of accepting. We are not ahead of this. We're not. Obviously, we've lost 3 amazing athletes in a month span.
The NAMI program with Jerry Kurger talking about, ending the silence and eliminating the stigma behind mental health is so important.
Yeah.
And sharing that with me last night when I was talking about what I'm going through, is that that's something that I needed to be open to. And you don't do that because you feel weak, but you do it because it's a resource to talk about it.
Why do you get an oil change?
Right. Exactly.
You don't feel anything wrong with your car when you need to get oil change. You could drive your car for 2 years without an oil change. But over time, the car is deteriorating. You know what I mean? Like, that's when we talk about therapy. You go to therapy to get an unbiased review and a healthy, safe space for you to communicate anything that's coming to you.
Right.
There can be nothing wrong with your life. You just go to speak. Because that's the thing. You don't realize things are bothering you unless you know they're supposed to bother you. Right? But they still can impact you. Right? So even coming across someone who had a bad day, that can mess up your day. That's how sensitive, you know what I mean? That's how sensitive mental health can be.
Right.
That's why it's so important to continuously tune it up and have conversations and be open to understanding and educating. So, we're stopping the stigma, we're stopping the silence, but now we're educating on what it actually is.
Right.
Right? Self-care studios, cold tub therapy.
Cold tub therapy.
See, that's y'all's issue. Your generation doesn't know. Cold tub therapy helps you handle traumatic PTSD and anxiety. Your ability to submerge yourself in cold water and fight the ability to not be uncomfortable while still processing and having good thinking skills is how you combat anxiety that causes distraction, fear, overheating, sweat. Yeah. Red light therapy does the same. An amazing wonder for your blood pressure, anti-aging, and eczema. So, eating, do your research. There's self-care everywhere you go. It's not just therapy anymore. There's books, there's authors, there's speaking on things. You just have to look for it. It's there now. Right? Recovery for athletes, and this is another thing before we hop off. Recovery for athletes is bigger than just, icing your knees and stuff like that. We need to go to these self-care studios. You need to learn breath work. You need to learn how to calm your brain down with techniques that have been known to work. Now we're on the education part. We're not talking about the stigma no more. We're talking about what we can do to solve it and heal it. So, great show, wonderful stuff. NBA Finals kicks off tonight. WNBA is on TV, guys. Don't miss it. It is the 26th season WNBA. It's kicked off this weekend, so amazing stuff. But again, thank you guys for joining us to talk about an awesome topic with mental health awareness. Thank you, of course, to our streaming platforms, Amazon Fire, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, and Apple TV. And, of course, our key platform out of Phoenix, Arizona, E360 TV. Again, this is Faith Family Focus. We're going to use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others and strengthen their family core. And, of course, our slogan.
Let go, let God, let go, let faith, and let go, let love.
Everyone have a wonderful Monday. We'll see you soon.
Great job, Faith.